All right. Yes, indeed. It is once again time for the Kanika Sports Show, everybody. We are back with our special Tokyo Series wrap up. And boy, do we have a great show planned for you today. I am your host, Kenny, and joining me once again, as always, is the one, the only, producer Nika.
Well, thank you, Kenny. Thank you to our new and returning listeners for checking in and tuning in on a Wednesday
Hump Day
afternoon.
edition.
It is. It's unusual for us, I would say.
Well, we haven't done a Wednesday episode since our first year doing the podcast, when we used to do a lot more podcasts. But we have significantly slowed down and chosen to do quality over quantity. But we couldn't resist today because it is a special day, and the Tokyo series has come to its conclusion, and the Cubs lost both games. They are coming home 0-2. Probably the worst possible outcome if you're a Cubs fan for this series. And I don't want to downplay the significance of these games, because even though it's only 2 games and it's under extenuating circumstances, I would say, being on the road in a foreign country, kind of the villains, I guess, in the scenario. Even though you do have 2 Japanese players on your team, everyone wants Ohtani to win, right?
Yes.
So even the judges, apparently, more on that in just a second. But the Cubs did not play the villain very well here. They didn't really put up much of a fight, and the Dodgers do look like the mighty Dodgers still as the 2025 season begins.
Yeah, it was lopsided.
Yeah, they didn't have anyone to meet the moment, if you will, when it came time to the Cubs roster. Even today, they had some big time opportunities to score early on in this game and came up short. And
We did tune in for these games in the morning.
We
We really
did.
did. We got up so damn early because they were at 3 in the morning
Pacific time.
Pacific time. But
Yes, we
boy,
did.
I
It
wish
was
I
a
was up
cold
bed.
desert morning, I say. Cold desert morning, but luckily my lovely wife here made delicious coffee, and it was ready to go, and we had our coffee and baseball, everybody.
We did, and it was disappointing.
It was disappointing. We had high hopes that the Cubs would be, I guess, changing course from last year. They look like the same old Cubs, and I really felt like this was an opportunity to come and just kick the Dodgers at least one game in the teeth a little bit.
I'll give him a little bit of a challenge. It felt like, yeah, last season and no improvement, even though the Cubs did make some roster moves by acquiring Tucker, getting rid of Bellinger, but they still didn't show up.
Well, they did not, and we will talk about that in great detail during our hot and cold segment, everybody, because we've got the debut of the hot and cold segment on this show. I said it a minute ago, and I'm going to say it again. We've got a great show planned for you today. We're going to talk about these a couple moments in these games coming up here in a second during this little chatter hour, as we call it, as we kick off the show here. And then we are going to do our first inaugural awards of the season. We've got hot and cold. We've got a home run king to crown. We've got a road runner to meet somewhere along the way. And even a big whiffer making those heavy wins here in the desert. Huh, Nika?
Well, that would be helpful since the Japan Tokyo Dome. Sorry.
We felt them.
no,
We
no.
felt them over here.
Tokyo Dome has a dead air. That's all I gotta say.
Yes. Well, we will talk about that. We got an injury report. We got a couple of big names that did not play in this series that we're going to touch on. We got to stop the press. My man Harold Reynolds is up to his tricks again on MLB Network. Commissioner Rob Manfred got caught in a really quite an interesting moment yesterday during the Cubs broadcast. We were tuning into the Cubs feed here in the desert, and I clipped this because it's just too good to resist. And then we got a little extra innings about the future of baseball and Major League Baseball going to Japan that I have a lot to say about. I want to address it appropriately, which is why I'm kind of leaving it to the end,
Sure.
because I want to get through all the baseball stuff, and I think it can get convoluted and like you can cross the streams, as they say in Ghostbusters. And, you know, I just want to keep compartmentalize these different feelings, because there's baseball to analyze. And then there's also the MLB going to Japan production aspect of this that is worth taking another look at.
Okay.
All right. Well, before we get into this whole show here, we got to talk about the home run that happened in this game by Shohei Ohtani. It was his first home run of the year, and this was a talked about moment, I guess, on Twitter during this game. As soon as this home run was hit, and I saw I said, "Oh, that's not a home run." And actually, it's a funny moment because I had come out from the bathroom or something, and I had seen like the hand touch the ball, and so I had missed like the actual home run, and I had kind of heard what had happened, and I came out and saw the hand reaching over the fence, and my first thought was, this is not a home run. This was a ground rule double. Like, if this was in a playoff game, even if this was a home run, but there was this, all of a sudden they were like, it's a home run, and it was like kind of just allowed, and the umpires were reviewing it, and I was like, oh, there's no way they're going to call this a home run, and then they did, and it was upheld, and all these replays go through New York, and no one ever hears the other side of those phone calls, you know? It kind of reminds me of like the NASA control room or something. Like, there's got to be like audio of this, right? Like, there's a conversation happening. So I would just love to hear like how the decision was made that this was actually a home run by the powers that be in New York City.
I don't think they even cut back to New York at all. Sometimes when we watch the big inning, they show the studios, how they, monitoring, putting different angles and whatnot to review the case. This was not the case.
We didn't have that feed, but they were on the phone with the replay center in New York. That's the two umpires were both there, and they were like, "Oh, it's a home run." And there's a clear angle of a picture that was posted on X that this trajectory of the ball was not going to be a home run, and it's clear, and it's also clear that the ball was interfered with. And that alone should have been a ground rule double situation. And, well, let's hear from Dan Plesac and Greg. Spoiler alert, I watched the MLB Network postgame of this event today because it was, the second game, and it was the end of this event. And there was, I like to watch this stuff, but, man, did I hear a lot of BS. And here's the first bit of BS I heard from Dan Plesac and Greg Amsinger.
Did you think Ohtani's ball was a homer?
Yes.
You do, really?
I do. You don't?
I'm leaning towards it, but man, my phone blew up. So many people are like, "There's no way this is a home run."
Yeah. If that was Miguel Rojas, what do you think that ball would have been? Probably ruling on the field has been changed.
Yeah, double. But it's what everyone there in Tokyo wanted to see. Shohei Ohtani, it's his first home run. That's the other question. How many home runs? That's one of how many for Shohei Ohtani? Ooh, we'll talk about that.
All right, Nico. Well, as you can hear, they are both basically saying this was a legitimate home run. And we know from what I just said on the Twitter picture angle that was posted that it was not.
I agree with you. I saw it in my own eyes. The balls don't carry in that Tokyo Dome.
So we already have this effort by MLB selling this, that it was like a legitimate home run. And then to cap it off, they brought Harold Reynolds on a little bit later, and here's what he had to say about the home run.
What did you make of the Shohei Ohtani homer? What was your view like, and did you think it was clearly gone?
Yeah, well, it was hit so high, you weren't sure it was going to have enough to get there. You remember the first inning, he hit a ball to the track. So the ball doesn't carry a whole lot in this dome. That ball, I'm telling you, I thought it was going to hit the roof. And then I didn't know if the rule was if it hit the baggie, it was a home run or not. And then seeing the replay, you realize obviously it's over the yellow line. The fan reached out, but they didn't know what was going on in the stands. I don't know if they have replay in Japanese baseball. So it was really people wondering, what are they doing? They're stalling. It was quite a scene in the stands, because you take away the home run from Mr. Ohtani here, that's big news.
what we have here is a situation of basically MLB wanting to sweep this whole incident underneath the rug and basically say like, well, maybe this happened, maybe it didn't, but you know, it was in Japan and we didn't want to confuse the audience. Like, what?
Are we dumbing down the audience now?
I mean, with all due respect, you're bringing the sport into their country, but like it's a real game that counts in the standings. You can't just have different rules
Because it's a different
because it's
country.
Ohtani in his home country, and like, yeah, everyone there does want to see him hit a home run, no doubt, but like, he should have to earn it,
It's
just
anybody
like
else.
everybody else. Exactly.
Kyle Tucker had a home run, potentially.
Potentially, it hit off the wall, didn't it?
Exactly.
It looked about like the same trajectory, kind of.
But it wasn't counted as a home run.
Yeah, it's I feel like this is just a big Dodgers PR campaign that's being put on by Major League Baseball because the Dodgers are bringing in tons of new advertisers to the game. You know,
So it's all about the money at the end.
well, we will talk about that at the very end of the show during our extra innings segment. But yes, I did, and I just have to remind the audience really quickly that Major League Baseball changed the rules in the offseason so that Shohei Ohtani did not have to re-earn his status as a two-way player. He did not pitch last year 1 inning, and the rules clearly state that it was in the previous season or current season. So he should have to have had re-earning that stature by pitching the required amount of innings. And I don't remember what they were off the top of my head, but they waived that to be the previous 2 years, right?
Yes.
And they just quietly changed the language from 1 year to 2 years so that he doesn't have to reestablish himself. And to this day, right now, the Dodgers are carrying an extra pitcher on their staff because of it, even though he's not going to pitch for maybe 1 or 2 more months.
That's a messy situation. And nobody wants to talk about this.
They
Because it
bend
was
the rules
done-
for this guy.
Right. It was done behind the closed doors during the off season, so nobody knew.
And
here-
now he
here we
gets to
are.
have the home run today that everyone wanted to write the headline about. The great Shohei.
They already had the headlines printed. They just didn't want to reprint them.
Well, retype them in
Or
this regard
retype
because
them,
we
sure.
know that print media is dead in this country.
That's true.
But yeah, just a really kind of makes you grit your teeth. Like you have this great moment, you have this great player. Like what's wrong? He was standing on second base. He thought he hit a double. Think about that.
I don't think if this would have happened in any other sports, basketball, soccer, football, well, maybe football because you tossing the ball, but with any other hoops, this would never stand. You either score a basket or you don't.
With this, when even Ben Verlander. I'm going to give a shout out to Ben Verlander, who is very actively tweeting during the game, and of course is Justin Verlander's brother. Ben has a podcast about baseball, just like we have a podcast about baseball, but he has a bigger audience than we do. No offense to ourselves. Ben Verlander's like sarcastically tweeting, like, "Yeah, nothing to see here." Like, and what? Like, you cannot bend the rules just because it's a game in a foreign country, and the star of the country is the one that is kind of at stake here. You know, his at bat at least. You give the guy, he doesn't need handouts, okay? He's good enough as it is, and he was going to be standing on second anyway. He doesn't need any extra help, okay,
not.
guys? Like, just, he does not. And he doesn't need the false propping up either. There is no reason why Greg, Dan, and Harold should have defended that was a home run. And yet they're all selling it that way for the company, basically. They're towing the company line. That's why we are here on the Kanika Sports Show, everybody. We are holding these people accountable for what comes out of their mouths. And
Somebody's had to.
well, somebody has to. So, all right. We're going to switch topics and talk about Roki Sasaki, everybody, who did have the MLB debut patch on his jersey today. So in case you're following along, that Paul Skeens patch that was pulled from a Topps pack in December, was it? It was during the LA wildfires because the guy who pulled it, or the kid who pulled it, was going to donate the profits to the wildfire relief.
It was before Christmas.
Okay. It was around that time period. And anyways, Roki Sasaki wore that patch on his jersey today for his debut. Matt Shaw for the Cubs also wore that patch on his jersey, who made his debut yesterday. So they will both have those patches cut up and put onto Topps cards. That's pretty exciting, right? Like, they're going to be able to get pulled from a pack sometime in the fall, I think, when the Topps update comes out. But Roki Sasaki is more concerned about how it went on the mound, and it was not really pretty, Nika. He did manage to navigate out of causing serious trouble, only allowing a run. But boy, oh boy, he had 60 pitches here. Hold on, my mouse is being all finagly goofy. All right, well, okay, so he went only 3 innings. Okay, so Roki Sasaki, his stat line was 3 innings pitched. He gave up 1 hit, 1 run, 1 earned run, 5 walks, Nika, and he struck out 3. He leaves the game with a 3.00 ERA in his first game. He throws, let's see here, what do they got him down officially for? He goes 56 pitches, 25 strikes. If you're doing the math at home, everybody, that means he threw 31 balls, more balls than strikes. Let's hear from Dave Roberts about Roki Sasaki's first performance here in his rookie season.
I think there were some nerves, understandably so. Command, the velocity was good, but I thought, the command, he was, I think the emotions, the adrenaline was hard to rein it in. But in that 3rd inning, he made some big pitches for us. Throughout spring training, he's only pitched 4 innings. And given there was an increase in velocity all night tonight, there was a lot of stress in the last couple innings. And we have a long season, and I want to make sure that we protect him and he continues to build up.
All right. Well, I can certainly understand and agree with Dave Roberts that this was a game where you can get amped up, and Roki Sasaki has a lot to prove, right? He's 23 years old, and he's being crowned the next phenom, and obviously he can't do that without going out and doing it.
Sure.
However, I have to call a little bit of BS on this because Roki Sasaki, we've seen pitch in huge games before in big moments, primarily the final game of the WBC the last time around when Japan beat the United States in the finale. We all remember Ohtani coming in and closing that game and striking out Mike Trout, his teammate at the time, ironically. And we always forget that Roki Sasaki was the one who started that game at the age of 21, I might add, and pitched well enough to, lead Team Japan to victory. So I just want to be mindful of that when we say that, he's obviously been in situations that are high energy and been able to keep it under control before. I thought he was really, really wild. And some of those splitters were just dropping way out of the strike zone by inches and feet almost. So not a pretty performance, but I guess gutsy enough to get out of it relatively unscathed with only the 1 earned run. And really poor job by the Cubs for not making him feel it. And I want to quickly remind everyone, the Padres last year played in this series against the Dodgers in Korea. Not Japan this time, but was Korea. And very similar situation, Yamamoto starts game 2 as a rookie, first start for the Dodgers. Does horribly, gives up tons of runs. I think it was like 5 or something in the first inning or 2 and was out. Mm-hmm. And the Cubs had this opportunity to do the same exact thing today to Roki Sasaki, and they missed the boat. It was kind of sad. We're going to talk about it more in a second. All right, Nika, before we move on, I want to quickly play for the audience today's Daily Double, everybody. All right, well, here we have 2 of MLB Network's finest, Dan Plesac and Harold Reynolds, talking about Roki Sasaki's debut here. And we'll get a couple different takes, and we'll talk about it afterwards. Nika, can you play the clip, please?
I was telling Greg, when you look at Yamamoto and Sasaki, to me, Yamamoto is more experienced, more polished. And to me, I think there's huge upside long-term with Sasaki. But to compare the 2 pitchers right now is probably a little bit unfair. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I totally agree with you. I don't think you can compare them right now, but I think Sasaki's upside is going to go further than we've seen a lot of guys go coming out of Japan or even back home in the States. This guy, by the end of the day, I say by the end of the season, is going to be one of the top 10 pitchers in baseball. He's just got that great of stuff.
All right, Nico. Well, what do you think? Are you with Harold here? Do you think Roki Sasaki this year, based on what Dave Roberts even just said about kind of babying him, we heard him say that in that clip, do you think he's going to be a top 10 pitcher by the end of the year?
No. I don't think so.
Yeah.
They're going to keep the baby gloves on and carry on because they do have abundant pitching staff. So I just don't see it. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what we're talking about here. If he's going to be 100% healthy in October and ready to contribute in the playoff lineup, he could be a top 10 pitcher.
Sure.
You know, much like Paul Skeens was a top 10 pitcher, even though he didn't join the league until like the end of May and was still the starting pitcher for the All-Star team. But, you know, I think to put him in that echelon at his age with his experience, like we've seen the guys come over, Ohtani, Yamamoto, Darvish, like they don't just automatically jump and make it into the top 10 list. And he's younger than most of them. I think what we saw today is a guy that needs some work and needs to, you know, go through and get this experience and realize, like Ian Happ, for example, I want to call out Ian Happ for a second. He went up there hacking on the first at bat against this guy who he is dropping the ball in there at 100, 101. He's bringing heat, no doubt, but Ian Happ is fouling the ball off. He's drawing wood on it. These guys are major league hitters. They can hit.
They can all hit a fastball. I don't think Roki Sasaki is going to be a bad pitcher this year at all, but I don't think he's going to be elevated the way MLB wants him to be.
I think he's going to go through ups and downs and struggles, and he's going to have a tougher time than Yamamoto did last year, who also had ups and downs and struggles. And, oh, by the way, injuries, which are not uncommon with Dodgers pitchers.
Oh, gosh, no.
But if they can stay healthy.
Even Ohtani, when he started pitching, he wasn't all that.
Right. He needed to work on it.
Exactly. He needed some work.
Well, I'm going to agree with Dan Plesac here and say that I think Yamamoto is going to have a much better season this year than Roki Sasaki.
My vote is for Skeens.
Well, I don't think anyone would disagree with that argument, Nika. I would take Paul Skeens over both of them. I mean, but out of both of these two Japanese pitchers, it is unfair to compare them. But unfortunately, they're always going to be compared. You know, they came to the Dodgers a year apart from each other during this reign of the three-headed dragon. That we've talked about on this podcast, Ohtani, Yamamoto, and now Sasaki, and that's a lot to live up to. And he's been dubbed the best of them all, so he has the hardest and the biggest fall of all of them to possibly have.
And you know how that works out for people that have so much spotlight on them.
It's a tough to live up to.
Yep.
And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And we already saw maybe the first hints of that in this start, potentially, when you have that little control over your stuff. And you're tossing
100 miles an hour balls? Yes, you got to have control.
100%. So, well, let's hope he gets his emotions under control and becomes the pitcher that everyone wants him to be. I don't want to see people not succeed, you know, like, and I want them to be as good as they can be. All right, let's move on. The Cubs, everybody. The Cubs lost. They're 0-2. They did not hit the ball very well.
How many times? How many times are you going to say the Cubs lost?
As many times as I need to for them to hear me on the airplane that they're on right now, Nika. That's got to be a long flight.
Yeah. Didn't they say like 15 hours?
Well, how long is that going to feel after this?
Oh, this is like a torture.
I agree. Hopefully Taylor McGregor is keeping it real with everyone there and keeping everyone sane because, I mean, she was kind of one of the stars of the Tokyo series, at least when I was watching. Like, she was having a great time, and I think she brought back a lot of memories and stories.
Did she bring the fries?
Maybe. She was
supposedly better?
That was hilarious how she described them, by the way, because it was like, oh, you mean they weren't highly processed?
Less oil, less all the crap in them.
It tasted more potato-y, I think is one of the things she
that's
said.
what she said.
No kidding. No kidding. Amazing how that works out.
Because our potato fries have no potato in them.
Well, yours do.
Mine do, I know.
And you're making some right now with some corned beef with some St. Patty's Day leftovers, everybody. I'm excited for later.
All
But
right.
first, we got to get through the rest of this episode. And boy, oh boy, the Cubs are that. I don't know what. I was really hoping to see a different team here. Especially than the one we saw last year. And I listened, I heard Craig Counsell come on after the game, and I clipped it because I wanted to play it and then give you my thoughts about the Cubs' future this season.
Look, we had a great experience. The games didn't go the way we wanted to, but I think we had an experience of a lifetime. These are great experiences, period, and they're fun experiences. They're different. They do resemble the playoffs. You're not going to get. The kind of pregame especially resembled the playoffs, I thought, and so that's a good experience for our young players, and hopefully we get that experience again in October.
All right, well, here's my thoughts. My thoughts are, Craig, I get that this is going to be a memorable experience for everybody, but I just feel like this team was not ready and prepared to deliver a killer instinct moment here. They didn't rise up to the challenge of being the villain in this situation.
Okay.
Nika's calling a timeout on me.
No, not on you. I have something to add.
Add?
Because when he said they gonna take away a lot from this experience or they like this experience, they are not on a vacation. They are at work.
I know. And he was kind of saying that earlier before the trip. I didn't clip those bits, but he was talking about how, they're here to win games at the end of the day. And after you lose both games, it's like, well, it was a good experience. And it's like, no, man, you're going home 0-2. Now you have to go back and play spring training games again.
Which is always odd, but
and
whatever.
I want to casually remind everyone that we watched this same series last year with the Padres, and they lost game 1 to the mighty Dodgers. And what did they do? They came back in game 2. They punched Yamamoto in the face. They scored 5 runs on him. The Dodgers came back. They tied the game. The Padres came back. It was a back and forth slobber knocker, and the Padres pulled ahead at the end and won this game on the road like 15-11 or something. And the Cubs needed to do that today. They needed to turn this into a bloodbath and score a bunch of runs because whatever they did was going to require a maximum effort.
So it goes back to the baseball philosophy, baseball team philosophy.
Yeah.
And maybe the Cubs just don't have that at this.
They really missed that opportunity to cash in on Roki early in the game and put a young pitcher on the ropes and get him knocked out in front of his home fans. It would have been demoralizing. We could be having a totally different conversation about, was he ready to come to MLB yet? You hear a lot of Cubs fans are overreacting and it's not a big deal. We're going to talk a little bit about that more later with Harold Reynolds in our Stop the Press segment. But for now, I kind of want to leave people with this thought is that the Cubs' upcoming schedule is awful, Nika. The Cubs have to play after this. They open the season at Arizona for 4 games. And we know how loaded their starting pitching staff is. Burns, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, and then possibly Rodriguez?
They got
Eduardo? Fat. Thanks. You just wanted me to say the name. 4 days in Arizona right after spring training ends. You stay
they're
there.
Staying in Arizona.
And by the way, you have to play a pretty damn good Diamondbacks team that has revenge on their minds from their missing the postseason last year with young players.
Diamondbacks.
Then you go to Sacramento and play an A's team that is totally revamped and spent money and is not going to be a pushover. And you have to play in this minor league environment. So that's going to get hyped up and publicized. Then you have to play San Diego at home, who was a playoff team last year. And you have to play Texas at home, who was also a World Series champion not long ago. And you might have to face DeGrom in one of those games, who's revitalized and revamped. Then you play at LA for 3 and then at San Diego for 3. So how many of these teams have good records?
Wait, so this is their trip out west.
After their home opener.
I understand, but is that the only trip they're going to make West, or this is later they're going to have another one?
I think later they will have to play at San Fran at some point, and probably maybe at Seattle. I don't.
Okay.
They're playing Texas, so they play the American League West this year, and they might have to go to Seattle and San Francisco. It would make sense to do that trip. I didn't see that far ahead.
Okay, that's fine, but will they have to play the Padres and the Dodgers again later
No,
this season?
this is it.
Okay.
So that's an interesting thing. The two playoff teams from the NL West last year, the Cubs will be wrapped with before like April is even over. They won't
Sure.
play them again this year.
And how many total games that is in the West Coast? 21, you said?
Well, this is going to be the first 26 games. And
26.
after they play at San Diego, they have to come back home and play Arizona for 3 and LA again for 2.
So they can
have
be-
5 more games with the Dodgers, 6 games with the Padres, and 7 games against the Diamondbacks, all in April.
So they're not going to touch 500 at all.
I don't think the Cubs are going to be 500 starting 0-2.
Nope.
And I don't think this could end bad. They could be really far behind. Like, I want to remind everyone, Pittsburgh has a pretty solid revamped pitching staff with Mitch Keller. They brought in some veterans, and obviously they have Skeens, who's going to become like the Cy Young king for the next decade. Because I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to get hurt. I don't know. I'm calling it right now. It's a bold prediction, I know, but I think Skeens is going to stay relatively healthy in his career.
Well, he's not on the Dodgers for number.
He just has a beastie personality. He doesn't look like he's throwing hard up there.
And also, if you remember, his stretch out routine and workout routine is very different
Yeah.
than your typical pitcher on the MLB.
And he has those thunderous calves that just make his whole pitching delivery look effortless. He doesn't look like he's trying up there. And what did we talk about on the previous episode? We talked about how pitchers are overexerting themselves and trying to throw as hard as they can. That's not Paul Skeens. He's bringing 100, not doing that.
Yeah.
So I would be scared. Terry Francona's managing the Reds now. They're not going to be a pushover. Pat Murphy is a good manager for the Brewers, even though I think the Cubs and Brewers are going to be facing stiffer competition than they've felt. And this is going to be a tough fight for the NL Central. Good luck. All right. Well, the Dodgers, meanwhile, are sitting pretty at 2-0 and are going to get the establishment media kissing their ass for the next 8 days until the Major League season starts next Thursday, everybody, on March 27th. The Dodgers certainly don't have it easy in April, but I think considering how things have started, they're going to be just fine as we go through and go along. But they do need to be a little bit careful with how they manage this pitching staff. And obviously, we've talked about it. Their goal is to get to October with as many healthy arms as possible. So
there's going to be a lot of matches and games by a pitching committee.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to get 30 starts this year from Roki Sasaki. Mm-hmm. They might not get 30 from Yamamoto. They're certainly not getting 30 out of Ohtani.
Yeah.
Schnell, they probably will skip a couple times. And especially as the second half goes on and they want to get ready, quote unquote, for October. I mean, when you talk about this many pitchers and then you get to the playoffs, like some feelings and egos might get hurt. Some people might get pushed into different roles all of a sudden. Like, and I just don't think that it's going to be any 3 of the Japanese pitchers. So good luck to the rest of you. I mean, you don't need more than 4 starters in a 7-game series. So who gets the other start? Tyler Glasnow? Blake Schnell? Dustin May?
I don't know.
They don't think these things through, just like the Red Sox, in the third baseman situation with Bregman and Devers. What do you do when you get to this situation now? All right, well, the Dodgers look everything is advertised to be, and I'll see you in October, I guess, because I have a hard time believing that they're just going to all of a sudden collapse. I don't know if the long-term success is there, like multiple year championships beyond, but it certainly looks like they're going to be in October again this year, even though it's not even April yet now. All right. There's a few reasons for that we got to talk about. But before we move anywhere else, everybody, it is awards time for the first time this season, everybody. Nika, can you play the hot and cold intro, please?
It's me, Ricky Martin, come on!
All right, my dear. Well, where would you like to start on the first one? Would you like to get hot and spicy or cold and icy?
Well, good thing we have only 2 games, so let's go with the hot.
Hot it is, everybody. Play the hot intro, Nika.
I'll tell you one fucking thing.
He's heating up.
I hope we get fucking hotter than shit.
He's on fire.
I said it's getting hot in here. So hot.
So hot right now.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
Excuse me, pardon me, coming through hot stuff.
Looking for some hot stuff, baby, this evening. I need some hot stuff, baby, tonight.
Number one is Mr. MVP himself. It is 50-50. It is number 17, Shohei Ohtani, the first hot player of 2025 on my list. He didn't light the world on fire, we'll say, but he goes 3 for 8 with a double, a home run, 3 runs scored, an RBI, 2 walks, and a strikeout. A little bit of everything except for a stolen base. No stolen bases for the reigning, I guess, NL stolen base champion. Or no, Ellie De La Cruz got it, but the 50-50 man didn't get a stolen base. So he did hit 375 with a 500 on base percentage, an 875 slugging percentage, and a 1.375 OPS. That's Ohtani. He showed up in the moment, and he, with a little bit of help from the MLB establishment referees, I guess, in this instance, gave the fans what they wanted. The first home run of the season for himself. Although it wasn't the first home run of the season, that honor will be bestowed in 1 minute when I deliver the news of the home run king.
Okay, so who's cold?
No. We have more hot players.
Oh.
We have Will Smith was number 2 on the hot list. Will Smith has an amazing stat line for this series. He goes 2 for 4 at the plate with a double, an RBI, 2 runs scored, and hear this. 5 walks, everybody.
They walked
in
5
2
times?
games. They walked Will Smith 5 times.
Okay.
That led to a 500 batting average, a scalding hot 778 on base percentage, a 750 slugging, and a 1.528 OPS. Will Smith was your OPS leader for the Tokyo series, everybody.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty
Will
good.
Smith starting the 2025 campaign on a hot streak, and they needed it.
Does he have a lot of milk?
I guess so. He's been drinking his, maybe he got some raw milk because it is legal in California, everybody.
Yes, it is.
Maybe that's what happened.
Oh, the reason I say it because he has this image of a 50s boy.
He does. Like, drink your milk, everybody. All right. Nika just wants me to do my Will Smith voice because she thinks it's funny. Okay, well, number 3, we're going to turn it over to the other team. The losing side did have some bright spots, I guess, if you want to call them that. And one of them was Lieutenant Dan, everybody. Dansby Swanson. The Cubs shortstop goes 2 for 6 with a double, an RBI, a run scored, and a walk. A little bit of everything. A 333 batting average with a 429 on base, a 500 slugging, and a 929 OPS. Certainly respectable for a shortstop. It's too bad the rest of his team didn't show up, as we will discuss in 1 second, Nika. But before we move on to that ice cold list, we got to keep it hot with this guy for the Cubs, John Birdie, everybody, who shockingly here went 3 for 6. John Birdie was filling in, by the way, for Nico Horner at second base. And I even heard yesterday that he wasn't even going to play today, that the other Cubs utility infielder was going to play. He did not play. John Birdie played, and he went 3 for 6 with a run. He did have a strikeout and 2 stolen bases, everybody. So he goes 500 at the plate, a 571 on base, and a 500 slug for a 1.071 OPS. John Birdie, your number 4 hot player on my list for the opening Tokyo series, everybody. And without further ado, we must turn it over to the flip side. We must discuss who was ice cold in this series, Nika.
It's cold in here.
How feel you?
I feel cold.
You're as cold as ice.
Let's kick some ice.
All right. Well, first up is Michael Busch, everybody. Michael Busch had a scalding hot spring training, and he must have gotten chilly in Tokyo because he went 0 for 6. He did have a walk. He struck out 3 times, and he did steal a base. But that's a 0 batting average, and that's a 143 on base, a 0 slugging, and a 143 OPS. Not the start Michael Busch was looking for, everybody. And it was more bad news for the Cubs. The hometown hero coming home, Seiya Suzuki.
Say it isn't so. You got the magic touch. Say it isn't so.
That's right. Say it isn't so, because Seiya Suzuki goes 0 for 8 in the Tokyo series. 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, a 0 batting average, a 111 on-base percentage with that 1 walk, a 0 slug, and a 111 on-base plus slugging. So ice cold for Seiya Suzuki. As the 2025 campaign moves on, it was also this guy who was also scalding hot in spring training with a 571 batting average this spring. It's 0 for the regular season, and it's Pete Crow Armstrong. 0 for 7, 3 strikeouts, and not 1 walk, did not reach base. Zeros across the board. 0 batting average, on base, slugging, and OPS. Nika gets it. All right. Not a good start for the Cubs, Nika. Those guys going hitless in this series. You can see why they lost. Bad approach against the Dodgers, and that's management. And that's what that tells me. All right, well, it is time to crown the first home run king of 2025. Nika, are you ready?
I am king, king, king. It's good to be king. Don't you know you're riding with the king?
Hail to the king, baby.
Who's the home run king?
The home run king. Well, look, there's a 3-way tie with 1 home run each with Ohtani, Kiki Hernandez hit one, and Tommy Edman. But Tommy Edman hit the first one, and to me, it was the longest one. And I'm ruling Ohtani's out. It didn't even clear the fence. He's not the home run king. It's Edman. It's Tommy Edman. Congratulations, Tommy. You are this season's first 2025 home run king.
Yay.
Congrats. All right. It's time to crown the Roadrunner. And I mentioned his name already.
Meep, meep. Meep, meep.
Well, the Cubs won something. They won the Roadrunner Award this week. It was John Birdie, everybody. The fill-in. Their backup player won the award.
One of the oldest players.
John Birdie, congratulations. You are this year's inaugural Roadrunner of the Tokyo series.
All right.
Keep meeping, buddy. Maybe you'll get more playing time. All right, the big whiffer for 2025.
Hey, bada, 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 so win, bada. Hey, bada, 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 so win, bada. Kennedy, 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 so win, bada.
It is a 3-way tie. We have, everybody, Andy Pagas, or Andy Pages, I think that's his name for the Dodgers. I always want to say, like, Pajes or something like Spanish, but I think it's Pages or Pages. Andy Pages.
By the end of the season, you will figure it out.
Yep. It was the aforementioned Seiya Suzuki with 4. And Matt Shaw, everybody, making his major league debut. He struck out 4 times, though he was not as cold as some of the other Cub veterans, so he didn't make the cold list.
So basically, winning a lot of games during the spring training doesn't necessarily translate to having a good season.
It does not. And so Giants beware as they've crept into the lead in the Cactus League play. Beware. It doesn't always translate. Now, you can make an argument that it's better to get hot towards the end of spring training, and we are certainly getting to the final stretches. We have the final week and a half here. But nevertheless, we are a little bit of a ways away still. So caution to the Giants fans out there. All right, well, that is it for the awards, Nika. That is the first 2025 awards for this year, and boy, oh boy, was that fun to do this morning, even though it was a little bit somber as a Cubs fan. And hopefully Busch Pete Crow and Seiya Suzuki really can get this out of their head and forget about this as soon as possible. But I do fear for the Cub, and that's going to lead into the Stop the Presses segment here. Actually, we got a quick injury report first.
Yeah, let's go with the injury first.
Injury first.
Ready?
Yes, doctor.
Doctor, give me the news.
I must confess, you have an astonishingly good idea there, Doctor.
Damn it, man, I'm a doctor, not a torpedo technician.
Dr. Harris.
Yes?
Do you concur?
Is there anything you can do, doctor?
Somebody give me a doctor. Somebody give me a doctor.
All right, we're mixing it up.
Sure.
All right, well, the Dodgers, I mentioned that they were missing a couple stars, and one of those was Freddie Freeman, everybody, the veteran. He was scratched before game one early, and this was before I woke up. He has what's being called rib discomfort. I have no idea what that means or what it means for his long-term future right now, but he was just out for these 2 games. And I think we'll know more when the Dodgers get back and there's more of a regular medical report with Dave Roberts probably at spring
I would guess it's
training.
something to do with his oblique. He might have either twerked it or stretched it wrong.
Wouldn't be an uncommon thing in Major League Baseball, would it now, Nika?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the other thing is just a reminder, really, that Mookie Betts did not play either in this series because he was feeling under the weather since even before they left. And unfortunately, I think just the travel to Japan, far away, was not helpful for his condition. He just got worsened. He lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, we talked about it last time. But makes you wonder, who made that decision? If you are feeling under the weather, why don't you just stay behind? You're not going to be playing. Nico Horner stayed behind.
I think it was probably no one wants to stay behind. That's the problem.
I mean, I'm sorry. If you're sick, you're sick.
We don't know how sick he was when they left versus how worse it got. But losing 15 pounds is serious, and it might take him a minute to get healthy enough to play because you don't just put 15 pounds back on once you lose it. So the bad news is here, if you're a Cubs fan and keeping score, that not only did the Dodgers go 2-0 against you in this opening Ohtani parade series, that's what I'm calling it, they also beat you without 2 of their future Hall of Famers playing, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. So not a great start. Am I right?
Yeah, not a good start.
All right. Well, get well soon to those 2 Dodger players, especially because the Mookie situation. I'm sure Roberts that's gonna be a big topic once they're back in the States. Is like, what's the health of Mookie?
Yeah.
So, Nika, let's talk about the Cubs some more because we're bouncing around a little bit here. But the Cubs, we got to talk about this because I'm passionate about this. It's time to stop the presses.
Stop the press. Listen, I'm sorry about what I said. I was being an idiot.
Excellent example of infield journalistic investigative technique.
Therefore, your heinous comment will be stricken from the record.
I just happened to notice that our presses aren't running, which strikes me as rather odd since we are, after all, a newspaper.
Well, there is Harold in there.
Yeah, Harold's in there always. He's the easiest to pick on. But no, they didn't have much of a crew on the postgame show, and it was Dan Plesac, Greg Amsinger, and Harold Reynolds. So that's who I got to choose from. And Harold was actually in Japan. He was on the ground. He was interviewing Roki Sasaki and Shohei Ohtani yesterday. And anyways, he was doing a on-the-field report with the studio crew live, and this is what he had to say about the Cubs and whether or not this is a foreboding sign for their season. All right, Cubs fans. Well, Harold Reynolds threw you a little bit of optimism here because he equated this to pitching against or facing Maddox and John Smoltz at like the beginning of a season. And, I hear what he's saying, but I totally disagree because this is a moment where the Cubs needed to play the villain. I've been saying this kind of throughout the show, but they needed to accept that and play that role. And they needed to sniff blood a little bit more, especially when they had Roki Sasaki on the ropes today. And I just want to push back against him because the Cubs beat themselves, much like the Padres beat themselves in the playoffs last year against the Dodgers. They didn't play fundamentally sound baseball.
So they basically were saying they are soft.
I'm very concerned about the Cubs and their management, and we watch a lot of Cubs games and we watch a lot of Padres games, and more I've been listening to press conferences with Craig Counsell. I listened to a lot with Mike Schilt last year, and I grew to really love the man and develop a bias towards his approach to the game of baseball because he says quite often, you got to take what the game gives you. And what he means by that is, pitchers are designed and taught not to throw you pitches that you want to necessarily hit, In fact, they have color charts divided into like a tic-tac-toe 9 squares, and some of them are red and some of them are blue, and the blue ones are where the hitter doesn't really hit the ball very well, and the pitchers are trying to throw the ball there. Not only are they trying to hit those spots, they're trying to do it with a mixture of different pitches. So it's a hard game, and Mike Schilt teaches and practices this philosophy to the Padres, and I feel like it's their core philosophy as an offensive team is you got to take what this game gives you. And
you don't hear
the Cubs,
that from...
I never hear this from Craig Counsell. I never hear him even talk about baseball in a philosophical type way. And everything seems to boil down to like analytics and such,
It really does. He does remind me of Melvin when he was managing the Padres.
Yeah.
Always with a piece of paper and looking the matches on the paper versus what's going on the field.
I'm going to be blunt here for a minute and just say, I think, Craig Counsell is kind of cut from the Bob Melvin cloth a little bit. I think we did some background one time and connected the dots between them a little bit. But it does seem to be a very analytical, like hands-off approach, if that is what I'm saying, right? And what do we see in common with Craig Counsell and Bob Melvin? They both seem to do better in like lower
Markets?
income situations, smaller market teams where there are lower expectations and it's a little bit more relaxed of an environment, even though everyone is still playing Major League Baseball. The pressure, like they're good at keeping those kinds of teams loose and maybe getting them to play above their expectations. I'll give them that. However, they fail when it comes to managing the bigger market teams that come with the pressure of winning and the expectations of winning. And I want to hear more about Craig Counsell's baseball philosophies, and like I think he needs to be communicating that more on a consistent basis through the media too. You don't think these players hear what their manager says to the media? And what do you think the Padres do when they hear Mike Schilt preaching the same philosophy over and over? Like, yeah, he sounds like a broken record, but guess what? That's how championship teams are made, by like you have a philosophy, and then you have a captain in Manny Machado on the Padres who executes that philosophy with the players, and holds that standard to the locker room. That's how you build culture in a club. And I don't see the Cubs building like an identity or a culture as a team. They didn't play team baseball in this series, and that does not forebode well for their season.
No, they were trying to match the Dodgers and trying to be the team that they are not. And it shows.
Well, we're not going to break down all of the decisions that went into these individual games, though there are certainly some questionable managerial choices that, I mean, like one that sticks out to me is certainly why was Dansby Swanson hitting behind Matt Shaw in the lineup in this game today, when I think you needed to have as many, I mean, obviously, and Dansby Swanson sounded like he was hitting the ball nicely off of his bat. The ball sounded really good when he was making contact with it. And you cost him an at-bat in this game. And so there's that. These are questionable decisions that should be questioned. But bigger picture stuff, like I would like to hear Craig Counsell's philosophies more because I just don't feel like we know them.
I don't think he ever came out and said what exactly he expects from the team this season, or what is the goal. Obviously, the goal is to get to the postseason and October and all that stuff.
Right.
That's
well,
obvious.
we hear him say that earlier in the show when we play that soundbite, like hopefully October. It's like, yeah, you're hoping, man. You're not like knowing.
Right.
And I wish you were more confident in knowing.
So does that mean you're not confident in your team?
I don't know what it means right now. Like I think the MLB set them up to be the losers in this situation,
did.
and they did not embrace that ahead of time. And like I feel like that Craig Counsell needed to tell these guys, like, look, they want us to lose these games. They want you to go home 0-2. And we're not going to do that, are we? You know, he needed to challenge his team more. And instead, when they got there, they looked like they were hungover from the flight. We saw this on Friday. We didn't cut the clips. You know, we didn't do it, but we saw the clips and we saw how disheveled they looked. And it was like, oh yeah, it's so far it's been everything we expected. You know, and then you hear him today, and it's like, oh, it was a great experience, man, great memories for a lifetime.
I know, it's like you coming back from vacation, not from a work.
It's unfortunate that they didn't get at least the one win and come back, but it is what it is now. And now they have this big uphill battle, as we discussed. And I just feel like it's Jed Hoyer's last year as general manager, and Craig Counsell's got this year plus 3 more years after that. And the Cubs could be heading into the dark ages here, because I have a feeling Tom Ricketts is not going to sell Craig Counsell's contract for cheap when he owes him all this money.
What team would pick him up?
I mean, nobody. But I'm just saying, like, you fire him, you still owe him the money that he signed.
I know.
For.
That's why he's not going to get fired. He's going to do his tenure at the Cubs.
Exactly. And he might be doing that with a new general manager. And it's a lot remains to be seen of whether that general manager is going to want him there. Anyways, we could talk about this till we're blue in the face, but we got more to get to on this show, including some funny antics that I caught yesterday morning from Rob Manfred. Nika, will you please cue up Tell Me How You Really Feel segment, please?
They didn't even ask how I'm feeling.
You don't know how I feel!
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
Maybe you can tell him how I really feel.
I got something to say.
Feels any better. Say what you gotta say.
All right, this is our newest segment where we find people speaking from the heart, and boy, oh boy, did Rob Manfred have a heart emoji eyeballs for some Japanese pancakes, everybody. Let's take a listen to Rob Manfred caught on Marquee Network yesterday morning in Game 1. Pancakes, everybody. That's what Rob Manfred's got on his mind while he's watching the Cubs and Dodgers play Game 1 of the Those must have been some damn good pancakes if they were sticking with him that long.
I looked it up. It's nothing fancy. It's just a souffle. That's all it is. It's just
Souffle.
whipped up eggs with some whatever batter that they use for pancakes.
Yeah, I mean, the general consensus I heard from people talking about this was like, Rob Manfred is severely sheltered, because if you follow any like kind of modern internet, Instagram, Facebook, any reels, TikTok, you will have seen thick pancakes like this before. So they're nothing special. And at least to the trained eye, they're nothing special. And yet he seemed to have fallen hook, line, and sinker for it. And he's selling it for the damn establishment now by like telling him like all the rest of the major league are like, don't go eat there, guys. If the Cubs really wanted to win, they shouldn't have had pancakes at that damn place this morning. And maybe they did. I don't know. Not throwing accusations out there. I don't know what they had. But if you had these pancakes, you didn't eat like a champion today.
It's probably true.
All right. Well, that was just a little bit of fun, but I had to play that quote because, man, did he love those pancakes or what? I think he could. I think if he could, he would have slept in the hotel on those pancakes. They were that fluffy.
I don't know. Most pancakes are fluffy, I guess.
I guess. I don't know. Well, hopefully he can find something to quench his thirst in the States, because Japan's far away.
I know, but you can make them at home. They're not easy.
I know, Nika.
Hard.
I know, babe. I know. All right. Hey, before we get out of here, we're going to talk extra innings. Thank you, Bugs Bunny. All right. Well, I clipped this soundbite of Harold Reynolds, everybody, talking about just the lasting impressions of the Tokyo series and what the future is for the Tokyo series and baseball. And this is a really interesting thing to talk about, and I have a lot of thoughts. I will try to make them brief. But, Nika, will you play please, this clip. It's 1 minute and 6 seconds long.
Well, I tell you what, Guggenheim's going to bring them back here. You got the biggest star on the planet. If you were here to see the reception that Ohtani continues to get, we will be coming back here. And it's not only Ohtani. They put on an amazing show. It was a combination of the Olympics, I'm sure, the WBC, but to start the Major League season, I think we're going to see multiple teams come over here, but the Dodgers are going to be the headliners because of what you got. Greg, there was a scene right after the game. You had all the Japanese players. There was 5 Japanese players in this game. They came out for a team photo, and I'm telling you what, the place, nobody left. They saw these guys coming out. They stood there. It was amazing, and just a scene, I think, is something that we're going to continue to build on. And Japan is a baseball country, and we're not talking about, they don't have the NBA they're battling with, the NFL they're battling with. They dominate baseball. And so if you're a baseball organization like Major League Baseball, you have to invest where your product is a premium.
All right. Well, Harold Reynolds here is basically laying the groundwork that not only are the Dodgers and Major League Baseball coming back to Japan very soon, they are going to come back with more teams and have more games. And I kind of called this, I don't know if we were just having the conversation or if we mentioned it on the previous episode, but the future, is in advertising here. We've seen the Dodgers form these partnerships with these major Japanese corporations, like Guggenheim is one of them. And we saw their name all over the broadcast even of the games, even on marquee and on all the games. So long story short is like there's serious advertising dollars at stake here, and MLB wants to keep, quenching those players or those players in the game thirst. They want to give those advertising executives what they want. They want games in Tokyo. They want to bring their boy home, Shohei. They want to put him on display in front of his hometown audience and rake in the numbers, right? Yes. So I think he's dead on here with this analysis, and I wonder who those teams are going to be, and I wonder how they're going to navigate it and expand this in the future. What I also want to say here, though, is that Major League Baseball, you got to be careful here about a couple different things. One is you put on this big event and media display for the country of Japan in Tokyo, and you kind of left the Americans in the dark with this event. And instead of it being a shared baseball experience between our two countries, all we got to hear was a little bit of "Go Cubs Go" on the stereo system inside the stadium during a exhibition game when the Cubs played one of the MPB teams.
That was it.
That was it. I mean, I think this was, by all intents and purposes, just put on for the people of Tokyo and Japan and not treated as a Major League Baseball like world event, which I would just wish for it to be more of a celebration. And I don't have a problem with them continuing to build this relationship with Tokyo and send more teams there. But what I want to also add is, can't we also maybe do the same thing in the Dominican Republic, where they play baseball from sun up till sundown every day in the summer and all year round because it's always summer there. And while the Dodgers seem to be cornering the market right now on Japanese players, Major League Baseball is primarily made up of Latin American and Central American ball players, okay?
And Americans.
That's your biggest audience to grab.
But also people from here.
Well, yeah, I know that too, and it's the American pastime. Yeah. It's our sport, no offense. We cricketized and stole it, but we made baseball what it is today by the time that we've put into it as a country. It's our sport, And anyways, I just feel like there's two big audiences that got ignored here, and that is like Latin America, and that is also America. Like the games were on at 3 a.m. West Coast time, and I know they can't do a lot about that, but I don't know. I really wish that Major League Baseball had a more world view of this event, and not just an isolated, like, all eyes on Tokyo and that's it. And they put it on for those people in that market, but not for the world.
Yes,
It was a very limited viewpoint.
Yeah, shame on them, really. Shame. They had zero crew over there. They weren't showing anything about Japan. They are in the middle of the cherry blossom right now. We didn't see any of that. None.
Absolutely none. And so I have no problem with this Japanese love affair that's been developing here with Major League Baseball and Japan. And by and by association, I guess the Dodgers, or maybe that's reversed. Maybe the love affair is with the Dodgers in Japan, and Major League Baseball is the lucky recipient of it, because they get to put on these lavish Shohei Ohtani parades. And like, I'm not denying that the guy is like as big as Michael Jordan is there. I'm not denying that, but like we can have these kinds of extensions being given to Dominican Republic, to Colombia, to Brazil even, like there is so much talent from the world coming into Major League Baseball. And I think it's good to go to Australia maybe too, it's good to go and play in Europe, like around this. Maybe we need to have spring training in like different parts of the world and send like 4 or 5 teams there. I don't know. But like, let's not leave everyone out of this. Let's expand together. Let's do it in a way that's, doesn't leave out people in general. It's got the potential to be the greatest game in the world, but
MLB,
we have to share it appropriately.
MLB wants to be a global brand. If they want to be a global brand, then events like the Tokyo event should have taken place with more teams. Bring in 4 teams or 2 teams that they have actual series over there back and forth, and do the same thing with other countries and make it as an event. And we want to be a global, and everybody's watching us. We want to bring more people into the fold. That's not how you do it.
It's not. And I think the biggest challenge that they have is finding a right time to do all this and travel arrangements, because we know that travel wreaks havoc,
Of course.
And so especially these overseas tours, but they have to figure out a way to do it. They have to figure out a way to do it to make the process fair, to include more teams. All teams, I'm going to argue, should have opportunities like this at some point. And we need to not forget about Central America and Latin America and the Caribbean and the places that are warm enough to play baseball year round all the time.
And keep the rules the same.
Nika's reminding us that Shohei Ohtani should not have 1 home run on his tally, as we all clearly see on the Twitter picture. And also, don't forget, Dodgers, Major League Baseball changed that rule about pitching. So
there's that.
Nika, I'm out of breath. We did extra innings on this one, and I think we made our point. Major League Baseball had a missed opportunity with this whole event, and sharing, I guess, baseball's version of Michael Jordan with a global audience and making it more about baseball and less about Japan. You want to share the culture, sure, I get it, but you shouldn't make it exclusively about the culture. It's about baseball at the end of the day.
It is about baseball, and the baseball has some rules, and you should enforce them. Not because you have a magic unicorn on your team, like, oh, everything is allowed.
But I want kids in Australia or Paris or London or Belgium, Dansk, wherever, Moscow. I don't give a shit. I want the whole world to turn on this event or see highlights of this event and feel like welcomed, like, oh, I want Shohei Ohtani to come here. I want to see him play in person, And they miss that opportunity. They miss it. That's all I'm saying. All right. Well, hopefully baseball will continue to expand, despite Major League Baseball's best efforts apparently not to make it expand, because everything marketing-wise was done towards the Japanese audience for this event, and it's a shame that we didn't all share in baseball together. Having said that, I am your host, Kenny, and I'm going to sign off for this special edition of the Kanika Sports Show, the Tokyo Series wrap-up edition, Thank you for joining us and our strong opinions about baseball as we march on towards the start of the season.
It's a little overreaction Wednesday, so whatever.
Well, it is, but we only had 2 games, and we are stuck with them now for 8 more days to talk about, unfortunately. So get ready for the over-analysis, overreactions all across the board. We tried to have a little fun with it and a little tongue-in-cheek. Hopefully you get all that humor, and hopefully it's cutting through on the microphone. Nika, do you have anything to add before we bid our audience adieu?
No, I'm just going to watch some wrestling.
You might as well, right?
Exactly.
After the manufactured home run illusion.
Yeah. Might be more fun. It's the all manufactured illusion, at least.
All right, everybody. Well, we will talk to you all probably again on Friday as we buckle up and get ready, get set, go for the Major League season.
All right.
Talk to you then. Adios.